Mr. Abbas, a Lagos-based businessman, had a wife called Bisi. They have been married for about 10 years. They had a peaceful home, or so others thought. They also had good jobs and earned good salaries, enough to give them good living. They were admired by people, but in spite of all these seeming blessings, there was a problem. They had no child. Slowly, the gossips began. The gossips would say things like, "Do you believe that they have no child? Really? Yet they are living this large? What do you expect? You expect they should start begging? Or what are you suggesting?" Okay, now wow. The fact is, people will not just mind their own business. BC had a few friends who were often trying to make any situation look bad. They are always there to advise you to look at your behind, even when it was very clear that there was nothing untoward behind you. People like that will advise BC like, "Ah, my sister, better save for yourself. Oh. You can't trust this man. This man may just become another thing one day. You do not want to be caught unawares, do you?" A word is enough for the wise. Oh. Then those words began to get busy thinking. At first, she began to hold back. Then she began to buy things for herself, lands, jewelries, cars, etc., all in her own names secretly. She would tell people it was for security, but greed eventually took over. Most of the time, BC appeared moody. Some say it was because of her childlessness. Others will always attribute it to one thing or the other. People must have something to say. You just cannot avoid it. BC worked in an office where she meets a lot of different people. Among these ones was a charming man called Cece. Cece was a type that was very approachable, very sweet with words. By the time he was through with you, he would have sold ice block to a man living in Iceland. That was the man into whose arms BC fell into. He told BC all the sweet things a gullible mind will want to hear. She told her how she deserved more attention, how she deserved more life, more fun, etc. One thing led to another, and they began to have secret meetings. Before long, Cece got to know how wealthy BC was and felt he had hit a jackpot. He got to learn about her lands, her jewelries, a number of her secret properties, and his eyes popped open. He quickly began to think of how he can marry her, but there was a problem. She was married to a Mr. Abbas. One evening, a party was organized by the office for customer interaction of some sort. Cece and BC were present in the party. Cece decided to ask BC one hard question. "Girl, do you love me?" BC did not hesitate at all. She just nodded her head and said yes. After saying that, she felt very ashamed of herself. She knew her husband loves her very much, and she loves him too. But the current state of her childlessness has gotten into her very soul. She had since been trying to find out where the problem was really coming from, but she does not seem to know where or how to go about it. Some of her friends have suggested that she tries a few other things, but she was still very confused. It was under this circumstance that she met Cece and foolishly began to play along. Cece then went further. "If you say you really love me, then Abbas must go. But it must look like an accident." "No way," shouted BC. "You are talking about my husband, remember?" But a little more pressure from Cece, and BC began to fall for it. "That is not how this world works. At times, one person has to give way so another can take their place and move on. Once gone, life becomes better and merrier for us, said Cece. We just take over everything for ourselves. As simple as that. Then she agreed. They then planned. They thought they were careful. An accident was arranged. A car crash was fixed. Abbas was put out of the way. Some tears were dropped here and there. They never really saw his remains, but they mourned for a while. Everybody went home and they forgot. A few months down the line, Bisi and Cece were married. There were a few gossips here and there. People were like, so soon? Has she finished the mourning period? At the end of the day, life moved on. To the world, Bisi had found happiness again after losing her former husband. But deep down, she was haunted by guilt. The people never stopped talking about her. They would say stuff like, is it not that one that got married even before they have hardly finished the funeral of her former husband? This life now, wow. She had never slept well since then. Mr. Abbas' spirit had never stopped following her since then. Whether she was the one doing the thinking or just simple guilt still beats the imagination. Meanwhile, Cece was becoming impatient. It was now 3 years since the whole thing happened. He was eager to lay his hands on the property. He was supposed to be very careful, but he was becoming impatient. He never knew Bisi could be this boring. He must find a way of shortening the period of wait and boredom that he was subjected to here. He never thought it would get this far. He particularly wants to lay his hands on the proceeds of the insurance. Once he gets that, he thought, he will quickly sell every other thing as scrap and find his way abroad. He thought to himself that, after all, he had arranged the elimination of Abbas before, so Bisi may not be a hard nut to crack. But they never knew that Abbas survived the crash, though badly injured. It was raining heavily that day, and there was no vehicles on that stretch of treacherous road leading from the village. He must get to his base that night so as to go to work the next day. That was the thought behind his mind. He was on top speed and had a slight pull from the tire by the driver's side. It was just a small pull at the steering wheel. The car swerved a little. He tried to pull it back. The last thing he remembered was the car hitting an embankment and doing a somersault, and everything went blank. Next day, a farmer found him still unconscious, took him to a distant village clinic. There he remained for months, battling for his life. Somehow he did not want to contact anyone about what had befallen him, or to let them know that he was still alive. He just wanted to know how much he was loved, particularly by his wife. He had observed the queer attitude of his wife in recent times and wanted to know how valuable he was to her. He also had a friend called Cece. Information had reached him that this friend was hobnobbing with his wife, Bisi. He knew this friend to be a gold digger of some sort. He knew this guy had been accused of destabilizing a number of homes. He had most of the information about their activities but wanted to hold real evidence. After spending months away to get fully recovered, he discovered and was shocked to learn that his wife, whom he loved so much, had not only buried him but had married his best friend. Abbas was highly disappointed. He wept bitterly because here was a woman he loved so much, a woman he gave his all. Even when people were putting pressure on him to go get another woman because of her barrenness, he had refused, telling them that it is God that gives children to anyone he cares to give. it is not the handwork of man. A lot others have continued to tell him about the activities of Bisi and Cece, but he had given deaf ears to all the gossips making the rounds. But he had taken extra precaution because of the way Bisi had been behaving in recent times. He had heard stories of people putting their spouses in harm's way so as to get rid of them and be free to marry another man. He does not want to be part of such statistics. Most of those stories he considered as things that happened in Nollywood movies and were acted. But today, it is happening to him live and direct. So he decided to do some investigation to find out more about the sudden car crash. The crash was too sudden and he had become very suspicious of the whole circumstance. The car was in top condition and did not show any sign of fatigue, though one cannot really say with accidents. But something told him that he has to get to the bottom of the whole saga. If nothing, just convince himself that his thinking was either right or wrong. But where does he begin from? He thought. He had no knowledge of private investigation and does not want to blow his cover for now. But he had a friend who was into private investigation. His name, Abdul. He was a former police officer who spent many years investigating crime in the police. He eventually left the police to establish his own firm of private investigators. So he called Abdul and briefed him. He told Abdul about the hunches he had and wanted him to help uncover the whole mystery. So Abdul went into action immediately. He was to trace phone calls, see records of transactions, properties bought in her name, insurance papers, secret meetings, plans made with some professionals, etc. Soon the truth began to show up. Then the accident and how it was staged and carried out, and even the various plans to put Abbas out of the way. Then the big one, Cece plans to eliminate BC, take over her properties, and claim the insurance monies. He had already planned her elimination with a lady friend of his who works in a hotel somewhere outside town. The plan was to get the lady accomplice to drug her drink and get BC to get drunk and sleep off. The rest will be handled by Cece and some other accomplice. But again, it was to be another accident of some sort, but certainly not a car accident, since the coincidence would have been too much to ignore. Having put all his plans in place, he invited BC to a very quiet getaway somewhere in the outskirts of town. He told BC that he wanted to give her a treat and get her to relax a little in a very quiet and relaxed atmosphere. Meanwhile, the private detective had been working round the clock and had even got wind of the whole plan. These plans have been discussed with the police and everything put in place to catch him pants down and had evidence obtained. They wanted evidence that would be incontrovertible before any law court. So Bisi and Cece were seated in the hotel's relaxation spot near the swimming pool area, enjoying themselves. The poisonous drink had just been served when the police arrived on the scene. Coming behind them was Abbas, a man that was supposed to be a casualty of a ghastly motor accident. When Bisi saw him, she was stunned and for some time could not speak. When she finally recollected herself, she said, "Abbas dear, are you really the one?" Her voice shook and her whole body began to tremble. I thought, I thought, her words failed to continue. Look, madam, there is nothing to think about. The thinking will better be reserved till we get to our office, said one of the policemen. Abbas was in real pain, his face a shadow of his former self. I have just known who you really are. His words hung in the air. They eventually appeared in court on several occasions. Bisi continued to plead to Abbas for leniency. He told him to remember their good times together, that it was the work of the devil. But Abbas looked the other way. He knew that there was nothing he could do. The case was beyond him now. She has to carry her cross and pray to God to meet a lenient judge in the process. The stories made headline news. The headline was always "The dead man comes to life again." Bisi, Cece, and his co-conspirators were found guilty of attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. The judge did not hesitate when he pronounced that the accused persons were very wicked and greedy, that they should not be allowed to remain among decent society. He pronounced them guilty and sentenced them to life jail. Upon hearing that, Bisi collapsed. Sisi remained bowed all through. As they were led away, the crowd murmured. Some said they deserved what they got. Others pitied Bisi, saying that she was a victim of manipulation by Sisi, that Sisi exploited her circumstance to do her in. But whatever anybody thinks right now was of no consequence. The sentences have been pronounced, and the judge had slammed his gravel. Case closed. What are the lessons learned here? Though Abbas lost his marriage, he quietly rebuilt his life and gained wisdom in the process. His story was to become a reference point for advising couples to trust one another and never let third parties to intervene in their matrimonial affairs. As such interventions, while at times in good faith, could be destructive to the relationship. Moral of the story: the heart of man is usually wicked and could be blinded by greed. Secondly, childlessness should not be used to define yourself. There are other ways of going around childlessness. Number three, there are always punishments awaiting evil plans. Above all, if you dig a pit on a road where everybody passes, know that you or your relatives may just be the ones to fall into that pit. If you have listened to this story and you like it, please do not hesitate to share, like, and subscribe to this story. You may also wish to leave a comment on the comment section of this video. This is to enable us continue to bring you stories like this from time to time. Thank you for being here.